Good evening. Welcome to the October 6th, 2014 Board of Selectmen meeting. If you can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I'm going to move around a little bit. We're scheduled for, I guess, 7 for the Common Core, if that's all right with you guys. Okay. Couple of things, warrant to be signed. Gentlemen, make sure we do that. On our addenda here, we have a Knights of Columbus requesting to hold the Tootsie Roll Drive in the square at Central and Library on October 11th. So you want to come up and, where do you go? Oh, there he is, he's in the back. I had my glasses on, missed you. So anything other to add to that, other than?
No, you granted us permission the last 3 years, I believe, and it's a major fundraiser for handicapped children that might need different eyeglasses, prosthetic limbs, wheelchairs,
Yep.
building ramps at people's houses, just to help that kind of charitable work that they do. You know, the state run, it's a statewide event, you know, usually they do it Columbus Day weekend, and so that's why we're trying to do it this Saturday, because it was pretty successful last year.
Sounds good. Well, it's a great cause. Any questions?
Just check in with the police chief, that's all, just to let him know you guys are gonna be out there, just in case he has
Yes, I
any.
can make sure that.
Yeah, just let the police, give them a heads up,
I'll
that's
do
it.
it tomorrow morning, yes.
Okay,
I should have done it this morning, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
great.
Mr.
Last
Chairman?
year,
Oops, sorry.
you know, Chris Rich was here representing us, but, you know,
He's on our
so-
shoulder now.
Yeah, so, all right,
Make a motion to, give permission to the Knights of Columbus to hold the annual Tootsie Drive on October 11th, in downtown area.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, you're in
All right,
business.
thank-
yeah,
for
just
taking-
check in with the police department,
I
just
will.
give them a heads up.
okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. On the addenda here, we have a Horribles Parade scheduled for Saturday, November 1. And that's just more of a, I think, a heads up, right, Mike?
Same thing, they really need to let
Do we-
the police know.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't need to take a vote on it, though, right?
We don't have a, you never
It's not really a
found the
permit
I
process
didn't
or anything
find
for
it in
that.
the
No,
policy.
we don't
I
have a
think
permit.
We
Right.
have voted on it before, but
Yeah, having judged it the last 2 years, police and fire are fully aware of what's going on. They lead the parade.
Yeah.
I think fire does.
All right. So that is November 1. On the third piece, Crosby's Market requests to change the sale of wine and malt Sunday hours to 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and that's part of the that new law change that we accept. So we will just have to sign off on that, I guess, right, Mike?
You have to take a vote.
Do we have to take a
You
vote
need
on
to
it?
take a
We do?
vote.
Okay. So I entertain a motion for Crosby's requested change of wine and malt Sunday hours to 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes. I was in and I talked to Janet earlier today about whether we can charge for changes like this when they come forward. You know, we've gone through a certain amount of manager changes and things of that sort, and there's always some hourly work and paperwork that goes along with it. Did you find out, Janet, if we had anything in the policy that allows us to, or
There wasn't anything in our policy.
So perhaps we
Just for
oughta-
a new application.
or perhaps we ought to look at it if we can, when someone's making a change? You know, I'm not saying I wanna bury them with fees, but I think our fees aren't that high probably as they go, and so we maybe ought to look into, in the future, whether we can, you know, adopt a fee.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chairman, my feeling is whatever it costs us to do the change, that's what we probably should be aiming to charge to cover our costs. I agree with you, Gary.
Okay. Does one of you two want to spearhead that?
I guess so,
Work with Janet and Mike
Yeah.
and see what's up, okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Lacy, you wanna come up and chat about this? Next project, FinCom representative, Mr. Lacy's here to discuss, use of full tax levy limit for, fiscal 16 budget.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, our agenda says we'll be starting at 7, or is that, are we good for 6:30, Mike?
No, the meeting with the school committee's at 7.
So we're covered as far
Yeah.
as 6:30?
Yeah, right at the top it says 6:30.
Okay, just wanna make sure that people understood that, that's.
How are you?
Fine.
Thanks for coming. So Gary, you wanna lay the table for us? Set the table?
Well, all right. This goes back to when we started moving forward with the project for the middle high school that had to be done. And when we first talked about it, we'd really talked about trying to work outside the box and do that project within budget, not having to go to the voters. And I think that sort of just got completely forgotten in last year's financial season. And it went forward, and, you know, it went forward as a ballot question and got passed. And you know, I was a real advocate. I believed that work needed to be done. No way did I think it didn't need to be done. I just would have liked to have seen it within budget. And I kept talking about it, and at one of the meetings, it was actually, I believe, Dave that brought it up, if my memory is correct, and he said that, well, you know, maybe next year we can look and try to see if we have enough free cash left over. Perhaps we won't have to take the 2.5, what do you call it, Mike, just to be sure. We're allowed to go up 2.5%, but we do not have to take it.
No, you don't.
So, perhaps going forward with this budget season, we should be on the same page, at least seeing if it's possible.
Well,
And we
first
did
of
have
all,
a
you know,
good,
generally, you're talking about, you're not doing the 2.5, and I'm getting this number from Mike, you're talking about $400,000, taking that out of free cash. And by and large, both the Finance Committee and the Department of Revenue do not approve of spending free cash for budget line items. And the reason is that free cash isn't a recurring source of income. If we were to take that money, and we really probably don't have that much, you know, looking at how much we have.
it's
and
probably
we have
not
to
gonna
do
be
with
that
it.
much.
Yeah, we probably don't have that much. That even if you were able to do it, the next year, since that money isn't recurring, you have to replace it with something. And probably, you know, it's unlikely that you would be able to go on forever feeding that particular gap in your income with free cash. At some point, you'd have to use the 2.5.
We
So
weren't
at that
look-
point,
We weren't looking at it forever. We were just looking at it at
well,
perhaps.
but I mean, let's say just 1 year. The next year, in order to fill that gap, in order to bring your revenue up to what it was, you'd have to use your entire 2.5% increase to there. So what you're looking at is, what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Structural issue.
Well, no, it's, people would have to live with the same budget that year as they have this year.
Level
Which
funded.
would mean, because there are increases in, probably in,
Well, it's level
Union
funded, so you would have
wages.
service cuts.
Now, wait a minute. If we were to level fund, you wouldn't take it. If you were to level fund, you wouldn't take the 2.5% increase. That would be level funding, I believe.
right.
Right.
Okay, so what
Well,
I am
that's
saying
maybe
is,
not- that's not
what I
necessarily
am
true.
saying is you would take that 2.5 and put it towards level services if we could. And it doesn't need to be 2.5% neither. If it worked out that we only had to take a 1.5% or a 1% increase, it's still saving some money to the taxpayers.
Yeah, I don't know. Level
Yeah, I'm
services,
just,
level services, are obviously probably more than, you know, level budgets. I just don't know how much it is, because don't forget, you have increases in healthcare, you have union increases, increases in other kinds of
I'm not
insurance,
saying you don't have.
fuel, I mean, you could have using most of the 2.5% to get the level services.
Typically, that is how it goes, but also typically when we have free cash, we use free cash in the fall and we fill in We fill in shortfalls where needed, as Mike said, a certain amount, we typically, I think we fill some for the snow plowing issue.
Oh, that's
But
probably.
that
a
is
big
where
chunk
we
of it.
put in the past, some of the capital projects, we put in
Right.
stabilization funding.
Some, yes.
So there's been places where we've used it. All I was saying, if we were more careful on how we used it, it could possibly be there to go into the next budgeting season, if we didn't spend it all in the fall.
See, Mr. Chairman, if I would.
He's
I
the
think what the,
financial guy.
I think what the request would be
Yeah,
is to ask FinCom to take a look at the feasibility of doing that and what would the budget look like. If we said, all we want to do is take the edge off for 1 year, this coming year, if it's possible. I know it creates, it's not the first year of the problem, Gary, it's the second year. Because
yes, that's
you have to
right.
make up the previous year's money we used for free cash, then the additional increases for that new year. That's where the structural issue lies.
Right.
But I'd like to see just to see what it
How the
looks
numbers tie
like,
out.
Well,
how it works out.
Chairman, in preparation for the last week's Finance Committee, I did do a projected pro forma budget for 2016. And the way I did it, I did not include the Proposition 2.5 levy tax growth,
Okay.
the 2.5%. And then I plugged in, I checked with assessing, they said, you know, count on possibly $100,000 in new growth. So I added that in. And then I kept all state and local revenues level.
Okay.
And then for the operating budget, we know all non-union and union, well, we don't know all non-union, but all union personnel in the town are getting a 1.5% increase.
Okay.
I also increased the non-union wages 1.5%. I asked Joan over at the school department what she guesstimates for the increase in salaries for all school department personnel. This year is a contract year for the teachers,
Right.
so
I don't know.
that's a
an
wild
unknown,
card.
yeah.
But she said based on last year, the general increase in wages was, in this fiscal year, was 2% overall.
Okay.
So I bumped up the wages for all school department personnel by 2%. And held all other operating expenses level funded. And when you do all that, and I also included changes in debt service, and that we're pretty sure on that, with one exception, is the bond, you know, if we're gonna have a bond payment for the school project,
Right.
for the middle high school project. We don't know. Worst case scenario, we'll probably have an interest payment, but I didn't throw that in there yet, because I just don't know. So, with all those conditions, the overall budget summary shows a $310,144 deficit.
Okay.
And that would have to be made up by, in Gary's proposal, by free cash. So
And you said you already included the 100,000 in,
new growth.
okay.
what about healthcare? Did you keep healthcare flat?
I did.
Oh, okay. That hasn't gone up recently, so that might not. be
No,
a bad
actually, it
thing.
went down
Yeah.
Planned
this
design.
year.
Yeah,
You know, it's probably, you know, it's gonna be, best estimate I'm being told is low single-digit increase, 3, 4, 5%. But I didn't do anything there either.
So Mike, in this whole what if that you've done, the only thing you haven't really plugged in there is it's level funded rather than level service, except for raises. operating expenses, you're going flat across the board.
Yes.
So that's a structural issue right there in itself. So
Yeah,
to
because-
Gary's point, hear me out just one second. So if the deficit's 310, and that's without doing anything, that's with no two and a half override.
Right.
To Gary's point, and what we've talked about was maybe we do 1.5 for 1 year to give people a little bit of a rebate back, and make up the difference with free cash, and then moving forward to the next year, knowing we'd have a little bit of a structural
That's
right.
right.
But it doesn't have to be the whole thing. In other words, if we said, hypothetically, throw another $100,000 in there for operating expenses, so we're 400,000 behind. What does it take? What's 1.5% bring us of the total increase? Does that eat into half of the 400? So we only have to take 200 out of free cash. Then going into the next year, we know we've given people a break, and that the following year we need to come up with another 200 plus the 2.5.
Yeah.
I know, I understand.
You
It's
get that.
you're lagging.
Where
Yeah,
you're gonna get that is the
Right.
question.
Yeah.
right.
You
It's
know,
structural lag, basically. is what
yeah,
we
that's
create.
right.
But once
Yeah,
you give it up, you give it up.
You build a
Yeah.
problem in when you do
Yeah.
that.
No, I understand.
But knowing that, maybe that following year, we have another maybe cut that 200 to 100 in free cash. Maybe this is a 3-year process. That's maybe run those what ifs.
Good. To my way of thinking, at some point, to Mike's point about bonding what we're doing right now at the high school, at some point, both of the high school renovation bonds are gonna be on the tax rate.
Yep.
The last one is paid off in 2018. And then the new one would sort of drop into that spot. So there'll be some time period, either 2 or 3 years, depending on how you guys decide to bond it, when you could apply some free cash to that, because that's not a recurring,
Right, because it's going to retire in 2 years.
it's gonna
Yeah,
retire.
it frees up some.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So maybe the thing to do, if we could do it, is to squirrel a little bit of money into like the stabilization fund, and do it a couple of years in a row and see if we can, instead of giving them remediation to what we have, is to try to stop it from going up when both of those things are on the,
Well, I think.
that would be my choice.
Which still is a rebate back, technically is a little bit of a break. Because otherwise you'd be footing the bill for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And recognizing the drop in 17,
No, the drop is in
but 16?
19.
Okay,
It drops in 19.
okay,
Fiscal net, okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I think from just sort of almost like a protocol, I think it's a good idea to look at that option every year.
Sure.
In our budgeting cycle.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I don't have a problem
and
doing that.
I know it's a little bit extra work, and
Oh, no,
Mike,
that's all
appreciate
right.
you doing what
Yeah,
you've done on
very
that,
good.
and we just take a close look at it, and I agree. I know we talked about it last year, and it slipped by us, and that's why we're bringing it up now before we get well into budget season, and I just think it's worth taking a look at. And
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be
Mr.
great.
Chair, 1.5% of the levy limit would be $239,000. So plugging that in, we'd have a $71,000 deficit.
But add another 100,000
And,
for
yeah,
operating.
So you have 100.
Put 100, so
Back up to
hypothetically,
200.
200,
well, even if you're
which isn't totally
150.
undoable necessarily. I mean, it could be doable.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
You know.
look at this year, he's running it right up to the edge of the 2.5% with things he knows that are gonna happen.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you recover?
Right. I mean,
That's-
because you
that's
do, you
the real
build in a
question.
structural hole.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how do you recover from that structural hole?
Yeah. Mike, what
Exactly.
was the state
Free cash every year.
basic reambulance this year? I forget, was it like?
We have had, at
1%?
some point, it's gotta stop.
The
Get a
increase
third
from last year?
ambulance.
Total?
Wasn't it like
It was-
0.1%?
It was, yeah, it
Chief
was
did
less, way less than 1%.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Actually, stand corrected, I did anticipate a 5% increase in health
Insurance.
insurance.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All
All right,
right, fine.
well-
So that would be a big.
That's a
And I
big
did-
chunk.
And
Yeah,
I
that
did
gives you some
increase, regional retirement always, it's been going up 10% every year for the last 5 years. Or workers' comp, same thing, 10%, unemployment insurance, 10%, and then health insurance, 5%. So those were built in.
Okay. Yeah, the other day when I talked to our insurance rep, he had said probably 4 to 6% he would anticipate for increases.
the retirement hasn't gotten any better now that the market is better? I mean, isn't that somewhat driven by that? I mean, I remember when we were having real problems there because of where the market was.
Well, the good news is, because of the market, we're nearing, full funding on the pensions.
Okay,
But I don't anticipate
the
any,
increase not being.
you know, I think staying at 10% would be, you know,
A safe bet.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
That's historically where it's been.
Yeah,
Well, I think, Jim, if we just stay open-minded to something.
We can, you know, we can
Right.
certainly look at a lot of different cases. I mean, that's not, whether we all agree at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I
It's
agree with
another question.
Let's look at it and have a
Sure,
discussion
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
and
yeah,
vet it out and
absolutely.
See where we go
We
with
can-
it.
we
and-
can do that.
And if we can do it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know what
Great.
those strategies cost us. or
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't
and
cost.
how would you dig yourself out? It would be
And
the big thing in
the-
my mind. How do you
yeah.
dig yourself out of that?
And when you
structural
do
hole?
that pro forma, you wanna look at it and go, okay, where's our risk
Yeah,
on that hole?
right,
And how would we do that?
yeah.
And
Okay.
you
Well,
know,
we're
have the committee give us some point of view on that.
Yeah.
How would we do that going
We'll probably
forward,
wait
year
a little
two, year
closer
three,
to the
to where the
budget
numbers come
season,
out,
yeah, till the numbers are a little better, and
Yeah.
then we can take a look at that.
Yep. But I just wanna get it started early and
Okay.
often, so to speak.
You're gonna bring up the rooftop units?
we have, the warrant reopening to speak about.
Yeah.
For 125.
175.
Oh, is that? We have it in
Thought it
as
was
125.
170. It was 200
Right.
originally. The
It's
town meeting gave them
175?
25, so it's 175 left.
Okay, because right now we have it penciled in at 125.
Yeah, you know, it should be 175.
Okay.
I'm hoping that,
And is that gonna cover it, you think?
I hope so. I think so. I think there's some like economies, not of scale, but of doing things at the same time. You know, we talked about
Yeah.
having the people maybe that are doing the roof do some of this,
Yep.
so that they have to take the old ones off and, you know,
Yeah.
put the old ones back on anyway, so maybe there's some savings there, so.
Okay.
But that's really important, because they're gonna start working on the gym roof in April.
Okay.
As long as they don't spend the 25 for roof units that they have, because it was originally 200 grand.
The school has that already.
The school
From
has
last-
that.
from last
25.
spring.
They have
Yeah, yeah.
25.
Right, okay.
Have they haven't spent any of it, have they?
I'm
I
not aware of them.
Yeah. We could ask Mary to,
check into that.
yeah, I think.
Okay.
Sure
Well, I
doesn't
think Carol.
Carol would
She'll be here.
Barbie
Is
could
she
tell you
coming tonight?
tonight.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm done, huh?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the great time at open house at Camp Dennison a couple weeks ago,
Yes, you
too.
guys are great hot dog cooks.
Mr. Beardsley, Chief Beardsley, you want to come up and say hi? How are you?
Good evening, fine.
Good evening, welcome.
Everyone doing? Okay,
Oh, geez.
so let's see, we've got a couple of items, right?
Yeah,
And
you have the floor.
Want to do the first one, the
However you want to take it.
service zone plan? That's
Sure.
a pretty simple thing.
Yeah, I'd like to,
Uh,
yep.
Service zone plan that you have there, rather thick document, but it basically covers all of our EMS operations for the town.
Okay.
We had one signed off back in 2010, 2011.
Okay.
But since we've changed over to transporting ambulance service, we needed to update everything, all of our ALS agreements and responses and such. So that's what the document is you have in front of you, all of the updates on that.
Okay.
One signature on,
Do you need that tonight?
I think, whatever you want to sign it off, just get it over to me.
Do we need a vote on that, or? Mike, do we need a vote?
Yes.
We do? All right, so we entertain a motion to approve the emergency medical services zone plan as presented.
With the, authorizing the chairman of the board.
To sign it.
To
yeah.
sign it. Yep. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
That was easy.
you're in good shape there, Chief.
Thank you very much.
There you go, Mike. All right, and the next one's Heart Safe Community Award.
Heart Safe Community Award. I've asked firefighter EMT Nick Valentini to come up. He's worked on this particular project for about the past 6 months, and I thought I'd let Nick explain it to you. And we have Mr. Michael Cass, who is the Regional Director for Northeast Region EMS, in the audience here for a presentation with some signage that we'll have and our certificate. So
Okay,
I'll turn it over to Nick at this point.
Perfect, thank you. And thanks for having us here tonight. I just wanted to take the opportunity to update the Board of Selectmen briefly on some of the projects that we've undertaken over the past 6 months to a year, which has resulted in the designation of the town of Georgetown as a heart-safe community. Really, as you know, since we've started the ambulance program, we've always tried to be a very progressive department. And we found that in this area, specifically in the area of sudden cardiac arrest emergencies, there was some significant room for improvement, and that's really what we've done, culminating in this award. So the areas that we found that we've worked on for the past 6 months include the placement and use of automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, at public and private sites across town. The acquisition of new equipment by the fire department to improve our capability to respond to cardiac arrest emergencies, and community awareness and education of sudden cardiac arrest events. And out of those three, I believe I'd be most proud of the third one there. But first, AEDs. I don't know if you're familiar with the units, but they're fairly common nowadays in society, and we do have them placed in the public schools and a couple of other sites across town, including the public safety building. Current science indicates that these AEDs are absolutely vital in the chain of survival, the American Heart Association's chain of survival, in improving someone's chances who suffers a sudden cardiac arrest. And what we've done as part of this program is really first take a good inventory of the AEDs that we have in town, both municipally sponsored and privately sponsored. And we've started to build up a database of those units that we can use both here on a local level by our public safety dispatch. If there is a cardiac arrest emergency, they're able to identify if there's a unit nearby that can be used, and also incorporate those into state and national databases that they use for statistics.
And you have a
other
mapping
purposes.
of where the units are available?
In progress,
Okay.
yeah. We've been working with the Fire Prevention Division. They, as you know, visit the different businesses in town on a rotating schedule about once every 2 years. Every time they go into a business, they do check for the presence of a unit.
Okay.
And if it's been identified as a high-risk area by AHA criteria, they'll hand them some materials to advise them of the risks and explain to them some purchase options for AEDs.
Okay. Are there any
So-
grants for getting AEDs?
There is. There was a grant that actually expired last year, unfortunately, for municipalities that was basically a 2-for-1 deal. Buy one, get one free. And I haven't seen any of them yet come out at the state level.
Keep an eye out.
But I definitely am, and specifically I'd recommend to the board, if there was going to be any consideration of additional units in town, I would recommend one be placed here at Town Hall, one in the public library, and one at the common area at Trestle Way. And I'm not exactly sure if that falls under this
State or
jurisdiction,
something.
but that would be my recommendations, just based on the areas that we don't yet have covered.
Okay.
Second, in just terms of response planning and improvements, I think we were already in a very good spot for this initiative. As you know, the police and fire department respond jointly to most medical emergencies. All police and fire department members are trained first responders. Most have additional training as EMTs or paramedics. And we have AEDs, as I just talked about, in all of our first response vehicles, police cars, ambulances, chief's car, and all of the fire apparatus. We will be introducing within the next couple of months, along with a new purchase that we just made, a significant upgrade to our CPR training that focuses more on a team mentality in line with national standards, and that really integrates first responders, members of the public, first responders, EMTs, all the way through advanced level pre-hospital care and the hospital itself. The equipment purchase that I mentioned, about a month ago, we sent in a purchase order for the purchase of a Lucas 2 device. It's an automated CPR device that basically takes compressions that would normally be done manually and does them with a machine. Science has shown that it greatly improves the effectiveness of the compressions delivered, and has significantly increased the percentage of ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation, in a pre-hospital environment. So we're very excited to soon have that equipment. I've been getting piecemeal shipments of it over the past month, but probably by 2 weeks from now, we'll have it fully in service.
That's great.
We'll be training with the police and fire departments as well.
And that'll be on the ambulances?
That'll be on
One of
the frontline ambulance, and we are in progress applying for a grant to purchase a second one for the backup ambulance as well. Lastly, and like I mentioned, probably the one that I would be most proud of is community awareness and involvement of this issue of sudden cardiac arrest and of CPR. We have recently trained an additional 3 basic life support instructors on the department to bring our total to 7 between the fire and police departments. And we've just started advertising and offering public CPR and first aid classes to the members of the community and to the business community. I really think that this, above all else, will have a big impact in increasing our out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survival rates. What they found is really those first couple of minutes, up to 5 minutes after cardiac arrest, are the most important, where they're going to need CPR and an AED used if available.
Is there a minimum age for CPR training at all? My kids are 12 and 15. I was thinking about getting them.
There's no
involved.
minimum age to learn.
Yeah.
The minimum age for an American Heart Association course completion card is, I believe, 13.
Okay.
I can check that for you.
Yeah.
But we could certainly
Follow up with that.
teach anyone, as long as they're able to kind of comprehend the process and do the compressions.
Is there a fee for the course and everything?
Yeah, we do have, actually, I have some promotional materials
Oh, good.
for
Okay.
you guys to review.
Great.
But we've set up a fee structure as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Excellent.
So just overall, I guess my concluding comments would be I'm very happy with the progress that we've made over the past year. I'm happy that we've earned this heart-safe designation, and I'll invite Michael up in a second to talk about it. But I really think it just kind of continues the trend of our department to be very progressive and proactive in responding to medical emergencies in town, and I just hope this momentum continues over the next couple of years.
Great.
What I'd like to do then at this time would be to invite Mike Cass to come up.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good
Welcome.
evening, good evening. Thank you, thank you. Let's just drop that there for now. So I'm Mike Cass. I'm the Regional Director for Region 3 Emergency Medical Services Council. And our region consists of 49 cities and towns, 15 hospitals. And through the region, we oversee planning activities, response activities. If there's a multi-casualty incident or something like that, we respond at the regional level. We oversee CMed, which is a communication center that ties in all the ambulances with the hospitals, and the other regions, again, for mass casualty incidents and that type of thing. First of all, I'm honored to be here and thrilled to be here because, to recognize, the Georgetown Fire Department. And, Georgetown Fire Department truly is a progressive fire department when it comes to EMS. And, like I said, we oversee 49, municipalities, so I see from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
And Georgetown, you guys really are very privileged to have the protection, the EMS protection that you have. And, the one thing that everybody can potentially foresee calling 911 for is a medical emergency. It can happen to anybody at any time. And what these guys have accomplished, Chief Beardsley and the deputy and Nick and the department, as evidenced by the document you just signed off on, the service zone plan, which I also applaud you guys for, because that puts the whole system together. And the key to successful resuscitation in the field is to have a system behind that resuscitation. So as soon as somebody picks up the phone and calls 911, Georgetown Police and Fire, the public safety answering point, they're going to get instructions over the phone, how to initiate CPR, what to do. In addition, the dispatchers are trained to determine the appropriate level of resources to send, and as evidenced in the service zone plan, there's a system in place. So the fire department and the police department respond. They're AED trained, they're CPR trained, and then there's the extra level of advanced life support, which also responds, a tertiary care type system. And through the Heart Saver program, the Heart Saver program was initiated to recognize municipalities and college campuses that put together a system that will truly save lives. And that's exactly what these guys are doing. And it has a measurement of criteria. So it's a weighted pointed system. So, based on the number of AEDs, based on the amount of public training, based on, the 911, emergency medical dispatch, and everything gets added up and the points get added up. And Georgetown is now one of, I think, approximately 160 or so cities or towns in the Commonwealth that are being recognized, and I think that's great, and I really applaud the efforts of you guys, so, Chief, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Nick, and I've got the certificate. Heart Safe Community, Town of Georgetown, in recognition of the community efforts to improve survival from sudden cardiac arrest and from meeting the criteria to be designated a Heart Safe Community. It's from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, Office of Emergency Medical Services, and it's signed by the Bureau Director, the Office of Emergency Medical Services, Department of Public Health, Deborah Always, and myself as the Executive Director of the Regional EMS Office. So there you go.
Great.
Congratulations. And also a road sign. Thank you. That you enjoy these 2 signs to hang up. And the firefighters in the audience, congratulations.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
well done.
a big deal, and you guys should be very proud. So
Well done.
Good job.
Thank
You'll
you.
be seeing at the entrances.
Of the
in
town? That's great.
T Turkey's already said he would.
He'll put them up. I heard that. Our favorite bootstrapper, Pete, you know? Absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job, Chief. Good job.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I'd like you to,
Oh,
put a
thanks.
request into the Affordable Housing Trust for one of the AEDs. What do they cost?
Roughly $1,000.
Yeah, all right, come see us.
Can we have everyone together for a picture?
First day I don't-
Photo op there,
Stay
yeah.
for a picture, Gary.
Sneak in.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Tell me where to stand.
Right,
Right in the middle, wherever you want.
there. Perfect.
Great. All right, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, so Nick, if you want, the first Wednesday of every month, the Affordable Housing Trust meets, and we have a mandate to spend on affordable housing, and we can help you out. We could probably help you out with $1,000 for Trestle Way to put one of the AEDs there.
Certainly.
So there's one off the list.
First Wednesday
All right,
every
come
month.
see us.
I'll see you
All
there.
right, all right, thank you.
Sounds good, thanks, guys. Our next item's talking about Common Core. We have Jamie Gass from the Pioneer Institute here this evening to talk about Common Core. We have our school committee here, so welcome. And do you have a quorum or no?
We do.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have to, like, sit up there with,
No, you don't.
but we do have a quorum.
All right, so you probably want to open your meeting, and then you don't have to come sit up front, though, if you don't want to. So.
Okay. We're able to take it in here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the school committee will open up its meeting.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So first of all, my name is Jamie Gass. I'm director of the Center for School Reform at Pioneer Institute, which is a Boston-based think tank. It's been very active in education reform for the last 20 some odd years or so. We're independent, nonpartisan, 501c3, which means we do not do any lobbying or endorsing of political candidates whatsoever. But I want to thank the chairman for the opportunity to come and share with you the research that we have done about the Common Core. So just to begin, I'll give you a little bit of context of what the Common Core actually is, because even though Massachusetts adopted Common Core in the summer of 2010, the fact is that a great number of school committees, of boards of selectmen, municipal officials across the state and across the country really don't know a lot about what Common Core is. Common Core is a set of English and math standards that were developed by the National Governors Association, which represents the governors of each state, not the states, but the governor of each state, and the Council of Chief State School Officers, which is the commissioner of education for each state. The lion's share of the funding for the development of Common Core, which are national standards, was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You all know Bill Gates, he's the founder of Microsoft, and they've put in over $200 million over the last 5 or 6 years to develop and to advocate for Common Core. Common Core is met also with two sets of national testing. There are 2 testing consortia. There's the PARC testing consortia, which Massachusetts is part of, and that about 12 states are in currently. And then there's the Smarter Balance testing consortia, which has about 17 states. So at this point, there is a majority of the states that are no longer in either of the 2 testing consortia. Like Massachusetts, the states that adopted Common Core and these testing regimes did so during the 2009-2010 federal grant called Race to the Top, which is a $4.3 billion grant from the federal government in which states had to sign on to various policy objectives from the U.S. Department of Education in order to be eligible for federal funding. Massachusetts, in the Race to the Top, received about $250 million. So to give you some context of how we got to this place, both in Massachusetts and nationally, I'll give you this, kind of brief overview. The reality is that the country, started off as a loose collection of colonies along the eastern seaboard and gradually grew to be the most powerful country in the world, primarily through the Founding Fathers' commitment to federalism, which is a balance between state and local authority in domestic matters and larger national authority as it related to foreign policy and trade and defense. But sometime after World War II, the evidence began to become clear that the United States, which had previously been among the highest performing countries in the world in both English and mathematics, was sliding. The earliest example of that was Sputnik during the space race. But by 1983, there was a commission, a national commission, put forward by President Reagan called The Nation at Risk. And what it did is it outlined that the country had fallen to between 11 or 17 in the world in terms of our ability to compete, particularly in the area of math and science. That Nation at Risk report said that if we had the system of public education imposed on us by a foreign enemy, that it would be an act of war. That's how badly we had fallen. Different states came up with different solutions, and lots of different people around the policy community for decades now have been coming up with different prescriptions. For quite a long time now, there's been a group that have gathered around the Governors Association, the Council of Chief State School Officers, Achieve Inc., other trade organizations in Washington, D.C., that have believed that the source of and remedy for our problems in K-12 education is a set of national standards, testing, and curriculum. There's been other people that believe that the way to improve it is to have greater school choice, whether that's through private or parochial school choice or voc tech schools or what have you, but the choice will add competition to the system and improve the quality and the number of choices for parents. What Massachusetts did in 1993 was really quite different from what anyone else was thinking about, and it proven to be historic reforms. At the time, Republican Governor Bill Weld got together with Mark Roosevelt, Democrat from Beacon Hill, and Tom Birmingham, who later became the Senate President, a Democrat from Chelsea, and they crafted the landmark 1993 Massachusetts Education Reform Law. And in a nutshell, what that law did was exchange a great deal of additional resources at both the state and the local level, and we've spent about, well over $100 billion, that's billion with a B, in exchange for all the difficult things that people in K-12 education had generally not wanted to do. Things like MCAS testing for a graduation requirement, a return to traditional math, science, history, and English for academic standards, charter schools which are independent public schools and inject some choice into the system, teacher testing so that the students and the teachers are being tested on the same academic material. And then a sort of an audit agency that evaluated how the money was being spent and how the districts were getting up to the reforms that were expected under the law. So really there's two conversations going on in this country. There's all the things that Massachusetts have done over the last 20 years, and then which have proven to be historically successful, and then the rest of the country, which is still stuck in the kind of stagnation and decline that I mentioned going back to the Nation at Risk in 1983. Specifically, Massachusetts participated in a test called the NAEP test, which is the nation's report card. It's been around for about 35 years or so. Every state in the union takes it every 2 years. No state had ever been number one in every grade tested, in every category tested, and in 2005, Massachusetts was the first state in the history of that test to do so. Then we repeated that in 2007, 2009, 2011, 13. I like to say that it's really the equivalent of winning the World Series 5 times in a row and doing it in 4 games straight each time.
That's pretty good.
But the Nation at Risk report really talked about the need to have our states, and we really don't have a national system of education. We've got a collection of state systems, because even at this late date, where the growth of the federal government has, moved into K-12 education, 90% of the funding comes from the state and local level. But what the goal really was to be able to compete internationally. You had to be able to compete with countries like Hong Kong and Singapore and South Korea and Japan. So in 2007, Massachusetts tested as its own individual country. It was one of only 2 states in the union to do that. And what the TIMS testing, which is really the gold standard in international math and science test, it illustrated is that Massachusetts 8th graders were tied for #1 in the world in science. And then we were within the top 4 in the world in mathematics. This is a remarkable and historic accomplishment. If doing well on domestic testing is like winning the World Series, winning the TIMS testing is like winning a World Cup or a gold medal. And we did that both in 2007 and we did that once again in 2011. So it's really a remarkable accomplishment. So in 2009, when the federal government came down the pike with the race to the top, we knew here in Massachusetts that in fact it was the race to become Massachusetts. Every other state in the union, and we've been to 35 states or so within the last 4 years providing testimony in front of legislatures and boards of education, every state knew that Massachusetts was the highest performing, and that's why the advocates of Common Core had to have Massachusetts sign off on Common Core and discard our previous academic standards, which had led to these historic gains, which is exactly what Massachusetts did in the summer of 2010. While most people were at the beach and relaxing and having a good time, the State Board of Education in late July, voted to replace these historically successful academic standards with totally unproven Common Core. So what our researchers did, being researchers, the first thing we did is look at the academic quality. So we enlisted a woman named Sandra Stotsky, who had worked on the high-quality Massachusetts standards, but it also is a nationally recognized expert in reading. She had been appointed to develop the standards in Indiana, which were considered among the best in the country. She had worked on the standards in Texas and a handful of other high-standard states. And we coupled her together with a guy named Jim Milgram, who's a professor of mathematics at Stanford University. He had worked on the very high-quality math standards in California. And what in 4 consecutive drafts of Common Core, both in English and math, illustrated, and these are all pieces of research that are online on our website, they mapped out in very careful detail that at every step of the way, Common Core was of lower academic quality than what Massachusetts, Indiana, California, Texas, Minnesota, and the high standard states already had. Specifically in English language arts, they ignored the evidence from Massachusetts that the focus of English ought to be actually English in literature and poetry and drama, the quality of the vocabulary and language found in things like Huckleberry Finn, Charles Dickens, Sherlock Holmes, Edith Wharton. These not only enrich children's mind, but they build vocabulary that moves towards genuine college readiness and preparedness for the workforce. In the mathematics side, Common Core decided to ignore the evidence from both Massachusetts and California and pushed off access to Algebra 1, which 15,000 pieces of research to illustrate that is the gateway for all higher level mathematics. You have to have Algebra 1 at 8th grade, as the previous Massachusetts standards did and the California standards did, in order that kids will be able to get to pre-calculus, calculus, and trigonometry so that they are able to compete in the STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's the reduction in the academic quality under Common Core. The next piece that we looked at was the legality, because there are 3 federal laws that explicitly prohibits the federal government from funding, directing, validating national standards, testing, and curricula, which is precisely what happened under the federal race to the grant application. So we enlisted a guy named Kent Talbert and Bob Eitel. They were the general counsel and deputy general counsel at the U.S. Department of Education under the second Bush administration. So they're the 2 highest ranking lawyers in the federal government under the previous administration. And what they mapped out is that the 3 federal laws are the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, signed by Lyndon Johnson, the General Education Provisions Act of 1970, signed by Richard Nixon, and the enabling legislation that set up the U.S. Department of Education itself in 1979, which is signed by President Jimmy Carter. 2 of the 3 federal laws that were signed that prohibit the federal government from advancing national standards testing and curricula were signed by Democrats. I think it's just worth noting. But they also, these 2 lawyers also noted that by the direct funding of the Park Testing Consortia, which Massachusetts is in, and the Smarter Balance, that this was an additional breach of federal law, specifically because the General Education Provisions Acts make it clear that if the federal government is going to be pushing national testing, that it must then go back and specifically ask permission from Congress to do so. That did not happen under the Race to the Top, and that has not happened with the funding of the Park Consortium. Now, the final piece of research that we have looked at, which is probably most relevant to the work before you, and is the cost. Because even though the advocates of Common Core have spent over $200 million advocating and developing Common Core, very few, and I think it's less than 5% of the governors in the country, less than 5% of the state legislatures or state budgets offices, and less than 5% of the state departments of education or boards of education actually did a cost-benefit analysis of what it'll cost for states and localities to adopt and align their K-12 education work with Common Core. So we enlisted a guy named Ted Rebarber. He had worked in the U.S. Department of Education under the first Bush administration and under the first administration of President Clinton. So he'd worked for both Republicans and Democrats. He was the kind of staffer that was on Capitol Hill in the room with people like President Clinton and former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and former Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole, negotiating the small amount of federal funding in K-12 education. He also had extensive experience in testing. And what he and his researchers came up with is that it's going to cost the states and localities, again, who will pay for 90% of this, it's going to cost them $16 billion to align their textbooks, their technology, and their professional development with teachers to the Common Core. So Massachusetts has already spent well over $100 billion to be #1 in the country and internationally competitive. We will have to spend, according to their projections, another $350 to $360 million to align our standards and our textbooks and our technology to what I think are demonstrably lower quality standards. Specifically, the multi-year technology costs are the largest cost driver. For Massachusetts, it'll be about $160 million via your school committee or through the request from your school department. You may have already seen requests for additional funding for technology in schools. It'll cost $140 million for professional development teachers, and $60 million for textbooks. So irrespective whether the town of Georgetown bought new textbooks in 2009 or 2010, prior to Common Core adoption, all those textbooks would have to be thrown out because the new textbooks will have to be aligned with Common Core and the Park testing. The final piece of research that we've looked at has to do with the collection of student-level data that is required under both the Race to the Top as well as through the Park Testing Consortia. The federal government, under FERPA laws, which are parental privacy laws, are prohibited from collecting these kind of student-level data. That's how they use the federal grant program to create incentives for the state to do what the federal government prohibits them from, federal law prohibits them from doing. We did a larger paper that was released, just a few months ago called Cogs in the Machine. It maps out in about 60 or 70 pages, and it's got about 600 footnotes. It's a very exhaustive treatment of this big shift, really, from K-12 education as more of a focus on academics, basic preparation in English, math, science, and history, to really more of a workforce development model where state and federal employees will have a greater hand in trying to help pick and choose and direct where students go in terms of their careers. So I could go on and on. You've been incredibly patient. There's a lot of details, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So is it mandatory that we adopt the Common Core, or is that a local district decision?
So the adoption of the Common Core to replace the state standards, our state curriculum frameworks, that was done by the State Board of Education. The Board of Education has not formally adopted the park testing. The Commissioner of Education in Massachusetts, Mitch Chester, however, is the chair of the park consortia. So I think there's a pretty good bet that he's going to be trying to encourage the localities to do so. For this year, it's still the district's decision. And I think it's running about 50-50 across the Commonwealth. That the districts are either deciding to stay with the MCAS test or go to park.
Okay. So, is there any point where the MCAS is sunset in Massachusetts where you have to move over to the park?
Well, if the State Board of Education formally adopts park, that will replace MCAS, and I think that their expectation is that MCAS will then gradually, over the next year or two, become obsolete.
Right. So, from my perspective as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I mean, thank you for all the information. Now, information is always good to have, but I don't think it's our decision. We don't have any jurisdiction over this other than if the school committee comes to us and says they've adopted core and they need, a 10% increase in their budget. I don't see where this is really our decision to make. This is a decision, this is why we have an elected school committee. We have a very good superintendent, and we have a very good school committee. This is their decision. And if they decide to move to Common Core, that's their decision. Now, that being said, I'm sure they'll be having public hearings and, informational sessions, and if parents in this town are not happy with that, they should be attending those meetings and letting the school committee know their feelings. I mean, and I've had a discussion with the chair, I don't see where this is even any of our concern, other than from a budget perspective. And we haven't heard from school committee yet to say, hey, we need, an extra $400,000 besides our normal increase to handle this. Again, I don't, if we turn over something to Essex County Greenbelt, a piece of property, we don't call up the school committee and say, hey, what do you think? Again, this is maybe more of a larger picture. So, again, I thank you for the information, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a school committee issue, and totally a school committee issue, and really not a selectman issue, for me, personally. I'll speak for myself.
Well, many school committees, or a handful of school committees, have begun to vote not to adopt Common Core. I think Peabody is one that's decided not to do that. The thing that's important to keep in mind, though, is that while the state can set the standards, right, and they can set the testing, all matters related to curriculum are local issues. So the state really has no ability to dictate to the school committee what it is that they must teach in terms of the curriculum. And then, of course, you're right, you folks allocate the funding.
Right.
So it's your decision about whether that's a policy decision you want to support or not.
I mean, because there's probably another group that would sit here and totally support Common Core, and
Probably,
you seem
yeah.
to be on the other side based on your research.
Yeah.
Again, for me as a selectman, I think it comes down to where the dollar's going to be spent and what's the request from the school committee. I can ask the school committee, I can ask the chair if that's okay with you. Have you decided to move to Common Core? Where are we with your decision?
Well, this year, we chose as a committee to stay with MCAS for the year. And that was, it wasn't done quickly. We had several meetings, and we chose to stay with MCAS. We are not a race to the top district, so we did not take the money, even though I'm sure it would have come in handy, but we chose not to under the superintendent's direction, and we agreed. So with that being said, we haven't, we're building a new school, we're getting new technology at the new school, and we really don't have any idea how much money it would cost right now, to go with the brand new computers that would be required to take the park, because it is a computer-based
Right.
test.
Right.
So, well,
Can I
Go ahead.
just interject? Yeah, my name is Pam Lundquist, and I'm on the school committee. And I picked up the phone and I spoke with a very nice gentleman from the Department of Education today. His name is Bob Leakham. I don't know if you know him. He's the MCAS Chief Analyst and Interim Park Coordinator. And I asked him a number of different questions, and one of my questions was, what is the recommendation for technology that a school district should have on hand in order to administer the park? And he said that the current recommendation is as many computers per school as the largest class. So for the high school, if the largest class had 120, was 120 students, then it would be 120 computers. So you would stagger the taking of the test by, you know, some in the morning, some in the
By like
afternoon.
classes and whatever.
Right. So starting at 0, so I added up, I looked at for next year, just because,
Yep.
say, next year we are, don't have a choice about administering park, if that were the case. We'd be looking at 350 Chromebooks that we would need to have. And that's assuming we have nothing right now, which is not the case at all. We actually have, you know, we have technology available, but assuming we had nothing, it would be 350 Chromebooks at $250 a piece, which would be $87,500. Just to let you know.
Okay.
Because you had mentioned some figure.
Yeah, I just
like a
didn't know what,
million before,
I just
and
didn't
so
know
we're-
what
yeah,
kind of
that-
numbers we're
that's
looking at. I said it could be a
zeroing.
million, it could be 100,000, I don't know, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, this is less than 100,000 starting at 0, which we're not at 0. So just in terms of the
Yeah, no, that's good.
Chromebooks.
But just back to my point, is that, first of all, it's not being mandated. It's the local district has a choice, so that's up to the school committee and the superintendent. It's only standard, it's different measuring standards, rather than MCAS, you would go to the park test. So they would have to change curriculum in order to teach towards doing well, again, with those, looking for those skills. Okay, so does that put, if in case we just, like they say, they're gonna stay with MCAS, that doesn't put any of our grant money from the state or any other grants or federal money that we get at risk, does it? I mean, that'd be a question for Carol, I think.
No, it doesn't.
Not at this time, anyway. Right, so the worst-case scenario is the state would mandate this, State Department of Education would mandate this, and here we go with an unfunded mandate.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I think the thing that's important to keep in mind, so there are a handful of states that have already withdrawn. Texas from the beginning, which is the largest textbook state, from the beginning.
When you say withdrawn, you're saying Common Core
They're
in
not doing
general?
Common Core, they're not doing Park, they're not doing Smarter Balance, they're not.
Meaning they never accepted.
They
race to
never,
the
they
top
never
money or-
even, Texas never even entered the contest to be competitive for any of the money. There are other states that did, Indiana did and has withdrawn, Oklahoma just a couple months
Is
ago.
there a penalty for them in that case?
Well, that's what's becoming clearer and clearer. So there are waivers from the No Child Left Behind law. Every Secretary of Education is permitted to give states waivers from provisions of the law. NCLB was a very onerous law, and that happened under both President Bush and has happened under President Obama. What they're not allowed to do is add additional conditions for receipt of that waiver, like adopting Common Core or being part of the testing consortium or be part of the teacher evaluations or the longitudinal data stuff that has gone along with Common Core. So what's happened is that Oklahoma has voted by law, their legislature passed a bill and their governor signed it to withdraw from Common Core. And immediately the U.S. Department of Education withheld their waiver for No Child Left Behind. So while they are prohibited from doing this, U.S. Department of Education is prohibited from doing it, they can do it. And they have threatened during the process of the adoption of the Common Core through Race to the Top, they said, if you're states that don't do it, well, maybe they won't get the Title I money, which is basically money, reading money for poor kids. There's a variety of different kind of bureaucratic levers that the federal Department of Education can exercise on states, and it's also true that the State Department of Education can try to exercise on localities. There's been some of that out in central Massachusetts where the Tantasco Regional School Committee did not adopt Common Core, has said that they're not going to do Park. And there's already a kind of wrangling going back and forth between the State Department of Education and the locality. I don't know if that answered your question or not,
Yeah,
but
no,
that's.
thanks. Gary, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Stu. Dave, I disagree a little bit. We've been here about, we've been here, when did we start? We've both been here the same amount of time. And I think that we've had many joint meetings with, and I'd say that the school committee is the one committee that we probably had the most joint meetings with the Board of Selectmen. So we obviously get somewhat involved with the school committee, which I think is good. I do agree that it's their decision, but I thank Stu for standing up, because if this is possible a state mandate that's coming down and nobody is aware of this, I really more applaud him for, you know, educating us on this. And he has told me that he intends to get both sides here. And so, you know, I've been trying to figure out on this whole thing, well, if it's just testing, how much can it cost? Okay, you got the technology and this and that. But no, because I think one of the things I've been educated about is because of the testing, we may have to get all new curriculum also, books and that, which is costly. And so if the state is telling us, you may not have a choice. And we know how they are with state mandates. They love to do it, but the funds aren't always there afterwards, even though they say they have to fund it, but they don't. So, you know, if we're opening up the window here for people to see, I mean, I really do think that we need to be involved, because we are the ones that have to go to town meeting floor many times. Yeah, I wish the finance board had been here also, because they're the advisory board, and if this is gonna down the line cost the town money, you know, we have to be aware of it and make the voters aware of it, and I do believe that's what it is. I'd like to also, I think I know, we've got some people out there, I think we got an aide from Senator Tarr's office out there. No? I thought, wasn't
I was
Senator
talking
Tarr?
about coming, but we haven't seen
We
it.
haven't seen them? Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, look at this. I think it's because of this. I mean, we got quite an audience here tonight also. So, I mean, people haven't known about this that much, that this board was gonna do this tonight. But we've got quite an audience here, so,
Well, Gary, to respond to that, I think it's, what I was afraid of is it's too early in the game for us to stick our nose into the decision of the school committee. That was my point.
I don't
That's
think
my point. But hey, hear me out. When you hear other things going around town that people are saying, I don't, you know, the kids are gonna be fingerprinted and profiled in these databases and all this other stuff, you know, to me, that's a political, it starts to be, this feels like a political issue. Many times through his whole presentation, he's talking about who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. This is, you know, it's turned in, I don't want this to turn into a political
no.
issue. That's my only point in all of this, is that I think it was too early to do this. I think the school committee should, you know, do their thing, come back and then educate us. Again, I just felt it was too early in here, and I don't want to get in the middle of a school committee decision, period.
I don't think we're getting in the middle of a school committee issue. I think what we're doing is we're getting in on what could be a state issue.
Exactly, and that's fine.
And I think we need to be there. I really do.
I just wanted to clarify that. The only reason why I mentioned that Governor Welder was a Republican and that Tom Birmingham and Mark Roosevelt were Democrats was to show that the Ed Reform Law 93 was a bipartisan effort. But just to be clear, Pioneer is not a partisan organization. We do not endorse candidates. We don't have any political affiliation whatsoever.
And where do you guys get your funding?
It's all, 3/4 of it is all private funding. A small percentage of it is from foundations. But we have not accepted any foundation money to do any of the work related to the Common Core.
Right.
When would this be implemented next year? What's the timeline look like?
So the Commonwealth adopted Common Core in 2010. In theory, then they began immediately beginning to work with school
Alignment,
districts to
right.
alignment 4 years ago. So we are, in a way, pretty far down the road. But what we also know from the research we've done on MCAS, and I did it almost 10 years ago, was that it's going to take a very long time for the local curriculum and the local work to be aligned with the state standards and the state tests. It was true under MCAS. It'll be true under Common Core. They are really, and people talk about their similarities, they really are entirely different standards with an entirely different outlook, and the testing is completely different.
You know, just no pun intended, but I did not want the school committee to feel like they were being called to the principal's office, okay? That's my whole point in all of this, you know, because that's why they're elected, that's why they focus on those issues. If it was if they came to us and say, hey, we have an unfunded mandate of, $1 million, then obviously we would want to know about that and work through it. I just felt like maybe we were jumping the gun a little bit and bringing people in and saying, hey, why haven't you looked at this? That's my only point, you know. And there was some fear mongering going out there too about kids being fingerprinted and, these databases being set up and, you know, the government, you know, big brothers, you know, now they're keeping tabs on our kids, and, you know, so there's some of that going around too, which bothered me. I think that information just needs to be shared with the parents and the general public by the school committee, not in this forum. That's
No, and I mean, again, we've done testimony across the country, and the reality is that many state legislators, a great number of boards of education know a little bit more about it, but the general knowledge of it, I would describe as definitely low. And in terms of the databases, I just refer to the paper that we did, the Cogs in the Machine. There's the outlook of the Common Core, and the data mining really runs parallel to it. It's not in the standards. It is true that the park consortia is, they claim they're not going to, but under the application that they gave to the federal government to get, you know, the $170 million to start the park consortium makes it clear that they have to turn over student data to children, to the federal government, and it's not just academic data. The goal of this, the people that have been driving this, Chief Inc. in Washington D.C., Governors Association, the Council of Chief State School Officers, have a long-held belief that K-12 education is about workforce development, and from their point of view, you have to collect lots of data so that you can make decisions about where people are going to be working. That's all.
And just, again, one last thing is that when I did start my remarks, I did thank you for coming to give us all this information, so I wasn't. Again, I just don't want to step on, you know, I don't want to be, this body to be out of
Absolutely.
line and step on anything that the school committee really needs to handle on their own. That's my point.
Are there any questions from the school committee or audience at this point? Sure.
I'm good to go?
Yep.
Paul Sadowski, 2 Tall Tree Way. I just want to thank you for all your information tonight. It's been very helpful. I guess the easiest way I could say I understand Mr. Surface's viewpoint, but without Stewart or Mr. Fowler going to the meeting the other night, I just feel like maybe the school committee or the superintendent, the parents don't know a lot of what's going on. So how do we decide? Do we stay? Do we go? Chrome notebooks or whatever. It's a lot of money. Is that another Prop 2.5 override? I mean, there's a lot. Everywhere we turn as parents, there's not much communication here at times with the schools, and that can't continue. Everywhere I look, it seems like we're getting shook down for more money. I mean, it's great earlier tonight, Mr. Fowler was saying, let's try and, shave some money off the 2.5. But, realistically, I mean, what are most people looking at for tax increases coming with this new school? I mean, most of the public doesn't even know. I've talked to Stewart, as the chairman, but a lot of the public doesn't even know, is that school on time? Is it underfunded? Is it on, nobody knows. I mean, the kids are playing like inmates out on Hot Top. I mean, nobody knows what's going on. So it's like, someone's gotta start telling me, because I'm just like, it's rudderless. There's nobody leading the ship here. So I don't think, Mr. Surface, that what Mr. Fowler and Mr. Eggenberg did, I applaud them. I think they did an excellent job. I felt like that was perfect. That's what we needed.
Again, I wasn't chastising them. I just want to make sure
No, I know.
we're
I know.
not stepping on.
And Madam Chair, I hope you feel that way, that this has definitely not come to the
I'm thankful.
the
for Mr.
principal's
Surface
office,
saying
because
that.
that was something that I fear you had in your head, and that's not the case at all. What I came to you guys with a couple of weeks ago was, as a parent, having followed this for a long time, running into frustration that it has not been discussed openly with the committee and with the town and with the taxpayers, and so that's how we started the dialogue.
What I want to respond to you, Mr. Sadowski, is that Mrs. Lundquist and I both attended that meeting in Newburyport as well,
I'm aware.
along with
Yep.
Mr. Fowler and Mr. Eggenberg, which was not included in the Georgetown Record article. So I do want to say that. There was
No,
presence
you were
there.
definitely there, and
I'm
I
thankful to the
applauded
two
you for
Tenders
that.
for sending
It
me
was
the
great
email
that
and
you were there.
inviting me to that.
Yep.
It was a very informative evening. I'm wondering why you would direct your questions to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen if you have questions about the new school.
Because if you and Carol, who's run,
I
I
have
mean.
never gotten any requests from you to give you an update on anything, and we do update at
Barbie,
every one of our
my
meetings.
wife and I have met with you on more than a couple times.
Not in regards to the school.
Barbie, we've covered a lot of things when we've met with you in Carol's office. I've mentioned looking for updates. Nobody knows. Since last fall, what's happened, it was just like after the whole arsenic thing, and Carol had a forum down at the high school, it just kind of disappears, you know, and it's like, you know, at some point.
We have
you know,
another one coming up this month.
I know, is it the 16th or something, but,
Yeah.
I-
So, guys, I don't wanna get off track here, because we wanna just
No, I
kind of
know.
stay here, and Pam, you had a question or a comment or a thought?
Well, I mean, I do appreciate, you coming, Mr. Gass, and explaining all the information that you have, and it is a lot of information, there is a lot to learn. And I appreciate you bringing all this up, Stu, because, you know, I am learning a lot more than I did, although we were already aware of quite a bit. I would just like to ask that in the future, in public, in a newspaper article, there's a reason why this article would cause us to feel like we've been called to task before your committee. You know, we were basically put down. It says here that, you know, you don't know much or anything about the Common Core, which is basically not true. You don't know exactly what we know. You know, if we could just try not to put, you know, public figures, elected figures, try not to put each other down, particularly in print. I mean, person to person, that would be nice. So we're trying to teach the students and the children of this town to respect each other and to speak with truth and kindness about each other, and I think you know, we can start doing that by setting the example right here. We do try to be as open as we possibly can about all curriculums. We have a curriculum and instruction page on our website. I counted up, I went through the agendas of every single school committee meeting last year, the 2013, 2014 meeting. I came up with 11 different presentations on curriculum-related matters, most of which did mention the Common Core. We have discussed the Common Core many times at our school committee meetings. I know that you know, maybe people don't always watch them, but it's an option. And I hope, Mr. Sadowski, you know, take the opportunity to watch this fine entertainment of the school committee meeting.
Believe it or
Because
not.
I have been reporting on the, I am a member of the school building committee, and I have been consistently reporting that we are on time and under budget, and things are going in that way. If those are your concerns, those things are.
I'm just saying, my point's not to insult everybody, but it's just that whether you go to Dunkin' Donuts, you go for a cup of coffee, you're down where there's an event going on, more than enough people state they don't know what's going on.
I
And that's,
understand.
I think that's what I'm saying, is the committee from a customer service, public
I-
relations standpoint needs to do a much better job
And I
of
do
talking to
believe
the public.
it is our responsibility to get that information out to you. I really do agree with you on that, and that is one reason why I requested a tour of the new school building on October 14th. I'm gonna take a lot of pictures, I'm gonna post it on Facebook, we're gonna try to get that out there. We try to get our information out in many different venues, and we'll continue to try to do so. And maybe we need to do a better job of informing the public of what curriculums we're choosing. I mean, I think you need to, you know, remember that the Common Core are standards versus the test. And I think, David, you mentioned that it's up to the state to vote whether we adopt the Common Core standards. We, at a local level, decide on the curriculums
Right.
that promote the standards. But I am unaware of the fact that we actually have the legal authority to reject the standards themselves on a town level.
Well, my point to that, Pam, was that
I mean, we
you
have a choice.
you are the school committee. You do run the
Yes.
you do run the district, and if you fully vet this and look at it both sides of the equation, pro and con, on if we accept Park or not, or if we stay with MCAS or
That's-
reject Park,
That's different than the Common Core.
and Common Core as well,
But that's
that there's no reason that you can't lobby the Mass Department of Education, your legislatures. There's no reason you can't band together with, if there were committees of like minds in the state that were either for or against it, there's no reason you can't band together and have a voice and have a share of voice by banding together. That was my point, and I just haven't seen anybody, so to speak, as school committees and all, talking about Common Core, and the parents certainly don't talk about it. And like I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago, it was really if we were gonna change the structure of this government in this town to a charter, we would have a lot of open houses and we would be discussing it a lot. And we would make it a point to put it out there. Well, Common Core just sort of just haphazardly happened quietly by design underneath the cover of darkness. And the school committee wasn't even aware of that. And all of a sudden, you guys are sitting here in curriculum meetings and it's like, okay, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. And I would think that if you know the biggest change in education's coming down the pike, that you would be having discussions about it in terms of, folks, hold on, this is a complete sea change in what's going on. I hope you understand it, because as Elena had said, you know, people, if they're not following every meeting and following that, you know, you're not building up on that information, as she had mentioned, and I agree. So as a public service, as a PR, as doing the right thing to the taxpayers of this town, I would expect that the school committee would have open forum discussions about, here's what Common Core is, this is where it is, this is where it's going, this is what it's gonna cost, it's totally different than what we're doing, this is why we're adopting it or not, or recommending that we adopt it or not. And like I said, the ask that I was ultimately envisioning is that if you vet it out fully and you find that it's something that you're really not that comfortable with, that you would lobby the state to stay with MCAS. And quite frankly, the standards that we have with MCAS are a lot better than what I've heard and read about here with Park and Common Core curriculum. And why would we trash the best system in the country? And why aren't we taking our system and having it go to other states versus killing the top student in the class and bringing in a C student to be the benchmark? I mean, I just don't get it. So that was my point, and people don't know about it, and it's time that people know about it, because by design it's been under the cover of darkness, because it's a top-down approach. And like I said, vetting it out and hearing it out, great. This was here, bringing in Mr. Gass here tonight because, you know, he's got the background on it, he understands what's going on there. Barbie, you haven't heard back from the state, I don't think, at all, as far as inviting somebody to come out and speak. I didn't get a call
No,
back
I
from the
have-
state ed department on it.
I have heard from other, districts that they had said that they wouldn't send anyone out, they just don't have like the staffing to do that. I know that's
That's a
not great-
convenient,
I know it's not a
excuse,
great
yeah.
answer to get, but we have received information that we can certainly utilize. We're also,
Yeah.
going to have a meeting this Thursday, is our regular school committee meeting. We were gonna use the Connect Ed, service to let the people know that we will be talking about Common Core, if anyone wants to.
Is the Connect Ed that's our website, or our,
No. so
Yeah, the
hold
phone
on.
system.
oh, that's your, okay.
Yeah, so we'll send out a message, and anyone that wants to come to the meeting or tune in at home, if it's not,
Great.
feasible for
Yeah,
them to come out.
and that's all I'm saying, is let's just have robust dialogue about it, because it really should be, people should look at it and understand both sides of it.
I know, I just wanna say,
Respectful
just,
dialogue without, can we agree that nothing more is gonna go in?
Yeah, and
that
quite frankly,
puts
that
anybody
was,
down?
I wasn't putting anybody down. I said,
that's-
the reporter, Tim, asked me, what did you think? And I said, I was disappointed that I didn't feel that the school committee knew what they were talking about on Common Core.
well,
But-
we
but
gave you an hour and a half, Stu, it wasn't
No,
like it
no,
wasn't
I
gonna
know,
be-
I know, I know.
We
know, and
would've been there
actually,
till midnight.
Oh, I get that. No, and you gave me
I would
plenty
doubt
of
how much
time,
you
and I
know.
appreciate
I can say
that.
I would doubt how much you know, but I'm not going to put that in print. I mean, you don't know how much we know. We actually know, I think we know a good amount.
I've
I'm always
I've
open to
certainly
learning more.
educated myself a lot
I'm
more,
always
so I
open to learning
appreciate
more.
that, but
And that's all-
to say
that's
that
all-
it's been under darkness, I mean, I
Not
tend to
you
just-
guys as
No,
a
I know,
school
I'm just
committee. I'm
as
saying the
as
project as a whole
country, I don't
has
think-
been buried in the dark. I mean, it is just,
Right.
if you really follow it all the way, you'll get it. But I digress. Gentlemen in the back.
My name's Rick Marson, I'm the state representative of Beverly, and I praise the selectmen and also the school committee. This information in the state in reference to Common Core has not been transparent. Nobody really knows what's going on. We have to be very thankful to Pioneer Institute, because they're coming out, they're spreading the transparency, and they're teaching all of us. It's very hard to understand when everything's hidden in the back doors. Little by little, as the truth is coming out. The school committee here, they stayed with MCAS. I give them so much credit, because
Absolutely.
they did not get the answer. Other cities, my city rubber stamped it. We never had no one, they never invited anybody in. had zero type of reform.
Mhm.
Right now, what you're doing is you're starting off of a base, you're trying to work together, you're getting more information. That shows a lot right now.
Mhm.
This is how it's gonna start off. So if you all start to work together, have some common ground, which you're starting to do little by little, you'll come out ahead of what's going on. But that's what you're doing right now. It's a great start. And I expect what I'm seeing right now, because when no one's being informed, especially by the state, what's going on, what Common Core was in the first place, if they explained it in the beginning, you may not be here right now, but they never did that.
Right.
So it's neither side's fault. So
Right.
I praise, they're doing a great
again,
job.
thank you. And again, to all due respect to the school committee, I don't mean to offend you, and it's certainly not what I intended, okay? And so if I've offended you, again, I apologize. Because that is not my intent. And I have
I wanna have dialogue.
so
I
much
wanna
respect
have
for you guys,
conversation.
and I know you're elected, and you put your time in, and we all do, and so I too am on the school building committee with you, and serve on that, and so I no ill will or disrespect intended with that quote. So that was not
Well, thank you.
okay
Thanks.
where I was going with it. So please accept my apology if you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, any other thoughts on this topic? All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you, Mr. Gass, coming in, and appreciate your time. Great. Absolutely. And we look forward to further dialogue, and that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in. You can adjourn the school committee if you wish.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Yeah, you guys have a great night. Thank you. Let's see. All right, so do we have GAA here, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find GAA.
They're just here for the,
It's more for the warrant, I think.
warrant.
Oh, it's for the warrant, okay. So, we want to reopen the warrant, so I entertain a motion to reopen the warrant for Monday, October 27th.
So, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the warrant is open. Would you like to come up and chat a little bit?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could lead you through the warrant and the changes that are being proposed.
Is this our revised draft right here, number 4, right?
Yes. The first change was in Article 1. You'll notice, prior to this, there was a dollar amount for the town clerk's request for new voting machines. And the day after our last meeting, I talked to Jan and asked her about the condition of the machines, and she said the machine that malfunctioned at the last election was replaced by a reconditioned machine for free. And that
That worked.
she felt they were in good shape. What she really needs is the new, and we also talked about, well, has the state mandated that you switch to the new machines yet? And she said, no. They finally came out and picked 2 machines that they are saying that, because the old machine is not gonna be supported anymore and programmed.
Oh, okay.
But they're not ending it right now. She felt comfortable if she could get the new machines,
Next cycle.
this spring, if there's money available. She would like at least 1 or 2 election cycles before the 2016 presidential.
Okay.
She just wants to be comfortable that they work and they're reliable.
Yeah.
So, when I talked to the finance committee about that, they felt, you know, that could wait, for another cycle. The other change, under the Munis project accounting module and chart of accounts, actually it was Phil that asked me, does that include everything? And at the time, I thought it did, but it doesn't. That includes the $35,000 that was estimated was for our costs. When we do the change, there's gonna be costs to Munis. And I asked them to give me a ballpark figure, and they said it's gonna be about $13,000. So if we were to fully fund the project accounting and chart of accounts, it would cost approximately $48,000. The $35,000 is a not to exceed number from our financial advisor, who's gonna be doing the work for us. Then the other change, we still don't have the wording for Article 2. But I just, and that would be for, to do the turf field, the artificial turf field lease language. We have to get approval from town meeting to lease any type of town property, and this would be that type of case. However, I'm having a meeting with legal counsel and the superintendent of schools and GAA on Thursday. We're gonna talk about the different options, or whether or not, you know, we need to do the lease or the license. There's some slight wiggle room that, even though the lease still is considered, you know, the license, the difference between a license and a lease is the license is, you can terminate it unconditionally. Well, unconditionally, the lease is, you know, you have term limits.
Yep.
So, but there are problems with the lease because you have to go 30B and bid. And although the chances are remote, there is still a chance that somebody other than GAA could
come
submit a
forward and
winning
compete.
bid.
Yep.
So we don't want that to happen, but we can't stack the decks to make sure it won't happen. But anyway, we hope by the end of Thursday, when we have that meeting, you know, we'll know what direction we're going in. The Article 3 has not changed. Article 4 did change, because I originally had 92,000 in both, and the chief indicated it's only 80,000.
Yep.
To refit the second ambulance. And on the second page, if I jump down, the articles for the planning board are being withdrawn. They won't appear on the warrant. They needed to have one more public hearing, and they weren't gonna get it in time.
Okay.
So, two new articles, and this is what Jim Lacy talked about when he was here in the beginning of the meeting. The Finance Committee last year was talking about funding $200,000 for the replacement of the roof units on the middle high school. They've exceeded their useful life, and but we were trying to time it. It was their hope to time it with the project that's gonna go on with the MSBA project.
Right.
Although it can't be included in the project.
Yeah, it's a timing issue.
But there's timing, because if you're gonna, the MSBA project is gonna put a new roof on the building, and if,
Put the new units on, hello?
yeah, if you don't put the new units on,
Yep.
you're gonna defeat the purpose of having a new roof on.
Right.
So they indicated that they gave $25,000, they approved 25,000, or recommended 25,000 as a stopgap measure last
spring, right?
town meeting, to just repair them as they broke. I don't know, when we talked earlier, I don't know if they've had to use any of that money. Carol, have you? Have you had to replace any of the roof units from the 25,000 you received?
No, I don't believe we have.
Okay. So as long as that stays the same, then they
we're
could
whole.
use the 25 they have and another 175 if you so desire to put it on the warrant, and that they'll have their full 200. And then Article 6, once again, Carol and I met with the school business administrator and the town accountant and the treasurer to make sure we're all on the same page for the turf field construction project that's going on. And we knew it was lightly funded going in. They originally asked for $1.5 million. That was the budget. But CPC only granted them 1.25 million. So they've been trying to work within that budget. They got an extra 200,000 for the remediation of the soil, and that has helped. And then there's the donation of the actual
Carpet.
the turf, from GAA. That's about $450,000. And that, as far as we know, is sufficient amount of funds. But there was a very thin contingency in the budget, and that contingency is
Oh, okay.
just about, well, we figured out last week, we have about $16,000 left in the contingency, and that includes moving some, what I feel are eligible soil remediation funds, the removal of contaminated ledge. They originally had that in the construction budget, but it is highly contaminated, or it's more contaminated than a lot of the soil is. So it has to be disposed of with the contaminated soil. So if we take about $7,000 out of and reclassify it into the soil remediation, we'll have, that's how we end up with $16,000 left in the construction budget, and we'll still have, if we don't use, we have $16,000 unspent, and Carol is not sure that we're even gonna need that amount. So we'll still have, if we don't spend the $16,000, we'll still have $3,700 approximately
Talk
left.
about cutting that one close, huh?
left
Seriously?
in the soil,
Really?
soil contamination.
Wow.
And for the last 4
Wow.
days, I went over there today, they've hit, blue granite, they call it. And they have one of those big machines with the hammer.
The hammer, yeah.
And the man's out there hammering it, and normally when you hammer rock, it'll burst into like big chunks of rock.
Yeah.
This is so dense
Yeah.
that it just creates a powder.
Really?
So the work they thought was gonna take 1 day is now on the 4th day.
Ouch.
And he explained to me today that normally you would blast, that's the kind of rock you would blast.
Uh-huh.
But obviously we're not lasting in that
Lord.
location, so.
The countertops at the new school?
Not after they make the powder on them.
Wow.
So it's definitely that contingency, is necessary, but, we're
Wow.
hoping that tomorrow will be the last day. But today, when I looked at what he got done from when I went over in the morning to when I went over in the afternoon,
Yeah.
he still has to go 18 inches into the ledge in order, because they're putting a retaining wall there.
It's always something.
Always something. It hasn't been an easy project. It's gonna be wonderful when it's done, but it hasn't
Yeah.
been an easy project.
Yeah, if you haven't been over, it's really taking shape right now.
Yeah.
It really looks good. So.
You'll have to swing by. I was over there last
You guys have to
weekend.
do a tour soon.
Oh, in the
Doing tours.
Big
Bring your
difference.
boots.
Yeah, yeah. Bring your mucklucks or whatever.
So what's the
Article
ask? I'm
6
lost.
Well, Article 6
Yeah.
is
Number's
just
back.
going to, we don't have a number.
We don't know yet.
It's a placeholder. The project will be practically finished by October 27th when we have the
Yay.
Early November.
meeting.
Nice.
So we should know exactly if if we spent the reserve or not. And if we haven't, we won't need to
Okay.
raise any more money. And if we have, we'll probably have to ask for a little bit money to complete the project.
Got a range on that? Under
Not at this
50?
point.
I think under 50.
Just to give us a range. Under 50,000?
Because the only costly thing would be the soil, anything related to soil or further ledge.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right, so we're not looking at a big number. Big number, right, Mike? Doesn't
That's
look-
correct.
Okay.
So, the new total then, if you add up all these, and with the one question mark of number 6, it's $272,500 being appropriated from free cash. The latest update I have, and this is as of today, and we're having our free cash certified on Wednesday.
Nice.
We won't get the official word for another week or so, but Mary, I told you, my estimate was about 600,000, and I checked with Mary today, and the paperwork she has prepared for DOR, it looks like it's gonna be 650,000 in free cash. So,
277.5.
minus 650 is 377,500 remaining.
Snow
Now,
and ice.
you need to be, safe, at least $200,000 for snow and ice.
Yep.
So that would leave a balance of 177,500 in free cash. Close. And that's all that would be left then for.
That's not a lot of breathing room.
For Springtown meeting.
Yeah. Not a lot of breathing room.
So what, we asked Jim Lacy to run for us. We don't even have the cash to fund it.
Not even close.
Doesn't look like it, right?
Yeah.
If I may,
Wouldn't be this year though, right? It'll be next year's free cash, right?
Well,
No, would be this,
no, it would be
this
15,
cycle.
right? 15.
No,
This cycle.
14.
14. Okay.
I thought we had more of a plan, I guess, on the roof unit, so that's what I'm not fully understanding that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's probably the best time, but, so,
I guess, Gary, it has to do with the way the pipes and everything run, that it's better to put them down before you put the roof on, otherwise you're cutting holes
You're
in the roof.
recutting into the roof. The new
that I
roof.
understand we
But
don't want.
Mike did text me back, thank goodness for texting, right?
Uh-huh.
He said that 15,000 was spent. He said they had all the units band-aided for the year. So apparently, not knowing the absence of when funding was going to come, he said they spent $15,000 just getting everything working. So everything is working right now. But as we said, it's
So what
Yeah,
you're
it's-
saying, for 15 grand, we've got everything working at this point.
that's right. But that they've extended beyond their useful life, Gary. So.
But I guess what I don't understand,
And I'm probably not the expert here, so you can ask the question. I'll
well,
get
I
you
mean,
the answer.
you're talking piping, and usually the piping isn't, I wouldn't think is what could fail in that type of situation unless it has to be updated because it doesn't meet code or something anymore, Usually your piping and that is there. So that's
So-
part of what I'm not understanding,
Yeah,
you
so
know, a lot of
can I-
times on a
information
unit like
Can I
that.
get you, Gary? Can you
you-
tell me exactly what information you'd like, and I promise I will get it for you. So are you looking for what specifically,
I guess at one point, we thought that you know, there was no piping. I thought we were replacing the units, and the piping that was there, you know, you would pull a unit off and replace it. Now, I remember some talk about a crane, having to get a crane to lift them all up there, and that was a cost, that they didn't wanna have to bring the crane in several times.
Okay.
That there'd be some money saved there. So I guess that's what I'm wondering, is what happened to that plan, or maybe I'm just remembering it wrong.
I'll get the information, so I'm gonna ask, what is the process for the rooftop, replacement, and, what specifically is gonna be done?
Yeah, because I mean, I think we're probably gonna move this forward for you, but I mean, these questions are gonna get asked at town meeting also,
Yeah,
so
and
I try
why
to-
do we need to do it now,
yeah.
right, before the new roof goes on?
Yeah, and then,
That number needs to be adjusted up by
then
15,000.
perhaps, how necessary, why do we have to replace the pipes? Are they beyond their useful age?
I've been giving you wrong information.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna write, are there pipes that?
Yeah.
No, it's
175.
175 plus.
Plus 15.
Okay, I'll get that information.
How come I have 125 for the?
No,
meeting?
that's.
We talked about
was-
that earlier when Jim was here. He said that, change
Should
that.
one-
Oh,
175.
yeah, all right, I missed it, sorry. We should appropriate some money to get the heat fixed in this place.
You okay if I
You gotta
ask
do
GAA a question
go
about
ahead.
the lights? I had asked John, now, are we somewhat in agreement here? I know you had some concerns about the lights and running a crane.
They're
We're,
gonna be done, that crane's not going over a done field, so we're not gonna have any dents on
so
that.
the
field.
lights that are necessary to get in, it looks like,
It looks like we're gonna just scrape under. I mean, we were hoping
Okay.
originally that we would be able to sell the soil from this project
Yeah.
somewhere else.
I think that needs to be mentioned.
And so there's, I don't know, the figure was between $11 and $13 a yard, I believe. And we were hoping to get, you know, I can't remember the number, but like 2,500 yards of.
I was hearing between
Yeah,
30 and
so
40,000.
About $30,000 to $40,000, we were hoping that somehow we could somehow creatively sell the loom off this project. And it was perfect because Pembroke needed it, so we could sell it to that project and just, or, you know, I was also putting out there, you know, if you can't do it that way, that, you know, have the guy who has to carry it in his budget anyway, the guy at Pembroke, the construction guy up there, has gotta pay for it one way or another. Just have him make a donation to GAA and we'd funnel it right back into the town, you know, in the form of, you know, trying to offset, you know, these dollars because we're so tight. But Mike has said it has to go into free cash, and I don't think that other option was agreeable to anybody. So I was just looking for a creative way to try to get that 30,000 or 40,000 back into the high school project because we're running so thin. Now, fortunately, Mike came up with some good ideas on how to, you know, how the soil mitigation could be, you know, where the billing should be done. And that helped open up a little of the CPC money and use the soil mitigation measures over here where they belong on that 200,000 that the town approved. So that's helped us out. So now I'm not quite sure exactly where we're gonna be at. It's gonna be close, but, you know, it looks like I don't even wanna say we're gonna do it, cause I don't think, something bad's gonna
Bite
happen.
your tongue.
You know, we have no breathing room, so I mean, if it was something, we didn't have to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a credit back over at the Pembroke, you know, that could offset this. That's gonna be $30,000 to $40,000 that, you know, if that was available in free cash, if we needed it.
Problem is, it crosses budget cycles.
That's right.
But just for
Well,
the
wouldn't
people
it
to
be
know
nice?
that
Not only that,
out of this project, you know, that this might be credited and won't have to go on a bonding project, perhaps, and is that the way you would sort
yeah,
of explain it to me?
absolutely.
So
We would-
that's, yeah,
We have a $800,000 and plus change order that soil, that loam is gonna be credited against. And that's less money we have to borrow.
yeah, so,
But the biggest problem with the idea of selling the soil is it has to be bid out under 30B. And there's no once again, like I said, there is no guarantee that GAA is gonna get the lease if they go for bid, although it's highly probable they will. There's no guarantee that the contractor up at the Pembroke property would be the high bidder for the
Yeah,
loan.
right, yeah.
And they need it yesterday. I mean, the loan is there now. So, we'd have to go through a bidding process and remove the loan from Pembroke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just not
Yeah, not
viable
feasible.
or legal.
If I could, again, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that, thank you, Mike, and everybody. It's good to see this sort of coming together, because it seemed like at a while, I think we were all sort of in odds. Was this ever gonna come together? And I hope that the meeting on Thursday is very productive. And
Yeah, that's the big issue we gotta get through at this point. I mean,
right,
it's
but
just-
at least we're sitting down and talking, and I'm glad to see that it's this Thursday and not at 6 p.m. before town meeting on
Oh,
October
no, no.
27th.
Right,
You know,
right,
it's- so.
Could I just, Mike even texted me and said there's no guarantee that they'll keep working, but he said the piping has to be replaced. With the new units, the old pipe won't work with the new Freon. And apparently the Freon had to be changed to code to be a more environmental friendly product. So the pumps have to be changed and they use the new Freon. The old pipes won't work with the new Freon.
So it's an EPA mandate.
It's home too,
Another
it's your house too, if you have central.
Yeah,
air.
yeah, if you
all-
replace it, it's all
everything's
new.
been all new.
Yep. All right, so any further discussion on the warrant? All those in favor of
I don't know what we decided, but
closing the warrant?
I guess, motion.
As presented, I guess. And
Okay.
This is,
Well, Mike, do we have to go to, it's gonna be more than 272.5, right? We have to do another 15 on top of that?
oh, these are placeholders at this point, right?
Yeah, the amounts will be determined through the motions.
Okay, so
We have time
So we're
up
good.
until 6 PM
Yeah,
the night of the
right.
meeting to
So
do
we're good.
that.
But- And but we won't have to open it to make changes to
No,
the
no.
language.
No, you-
We're putting in the placeholders, and,
Yes.
yeah, so that's,
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to close the warrant. I need a second.
I'll second that. That's the 6-article warrant.
All right, any further discussion?
David.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, we have a resignation from Bill Monroe. Due to time constraints, forced to submit my resignation from the Recreational Path Committee. It's been a rewarding experience. I look forward to contributing in other ways. Notice effectively immediately September 19th of 2014, and I have worked a lot on things with Bill. So thank you for your service and your time, and we look forward to seeing you in other capacities. And thank you so much for everything you've done on the recreational path. We're making great progress there. We did a bunch of cutting this summer, and that's coming along. And there'll be new and interesting and exciting things happening with that shortly. Next on here, let's jump to appointments and approvals. Entertain a motion for approval of the poll workers for the state election Tuesday, November 14th, 14. And I need to find that. So it would be Carol Cunard, Warden 1, Warden, Precinct 1, Etna Hollowell, Warden, Precinct 3, Sandra Braun, Kathy Sachs, Alan Hollowell, Susan Clay, Steve Epstein, Jeanette Lang, Pete Zabel, Margaret Anderson, Gloria Magaro, Etta Howell, I can't even say that last name, Hollowell, thank you, Carolyn Boynton, Diane Alaposki, Star Anderson, Warden, Precinct 2, Margaret Weaver, Joe Young, Kathleen Roach, Pat Lessner, Robert Davidson, Norma Lawson, Kristen Tendo, Lawrence Mintz, Robert Kennedy, David Bogdan, John Schultz, and Beverly Knapp.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen. We have a request to appoint Julie Coolidge to the Recreational Path Committee with a term to expire 6/30/2015, as put forward by Jeff Wade, who's the chair of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, welcome
Aye.
Julie, thank you. We know you do a lot around town as well, so welcome to that committee. We appreciate your service. Next is personnel handbook. Anything on that, Mike?
Yes, included in your email package last Wednesday was a final draft personnel handbook. Came back from legal. I made the recommended changes
Okay.
and additions and deletions.
Okay.
And I feel it's, there were important changes. They weren't extensive.
Okay.
But
Significant.
there are about, 3 deletions and 3 additions.
Okay.
That was recommended by legal counsel, and they were taken care of in that draft.
All right. So, entertain a motion to approve the personnel handbook as presented.
I'll make a motion, but I'd like some discussion.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
And, I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, do you think it's appropriate to have a full board before we vote that? Where we hear from the other 2 members of the board? That would be my only concern.
That's up to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm throwing that out to the board. You
If I
guys.
may,
Yeah, sure.
we've had this for some time.
Yep.
Mike followed up on what you asked, that he run it by legal.
Mhm.
I looked it over and saw the changes. When we first went into it, Dave, I thought, why do we need this? There was some language in it that I felt like was a little, not so much, didn't feel like it belonged in a town situation. But you know what? The town voted to make Mike a personnel director,
Mhm.
and he feels that he needs this as a tool. And even though I didn't want to see let the personnel board go,
Me neither.
I mean, I still think that we need to give this to Mike. It's not that often that we've been getting a full board, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that. I'm
Yeah,
just
and
curious,
so
that's all.
I think, many times I think we kick things down the road. I think it's time to stop. If I may ask a question though, what employees is this going to? Does this also go to the school department?
No, does not go to
Now,
school.
why does it not? I mean, we give it to everybody but the school department, I guess.
'Cause
They're still town employees.
They are, but they're under the direction and control of the school committee.
Do they have a handbook?
Yes,
I mean, have you?
They
okay.
do.
Okay, so because they have their own handbook, that's why this isn't going. Are they similar?
The basics are there.
Okay.
I mean, theirs is definitely education
Okay,
related.
well, I can perhaps see the
Yeah.
need for a difference in
Mhm.
that point, yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Food truck regulations. This is our, Mike, give us a quick one on, update on that.
Well, this originally came from legal counsel. So we started with
Yeah, with the backbone of it.
with the document from them, and we just, the biggest thing we've done is we put a 100-foot perimeter around every business, every brick and mortar business, and it was simple. We just had to get everybody that had a common vic license in town.
Okay.
And through our GPS mapping, GIS mapping, the planning board gave us the map, so we have designated areas where food trucks cannot go. So they cannot go within 100 feet of a brick and mortar food establishment. And we recommended, there's hours of operation for them.
Did you end up with a food vendor committee?
Well, the people that were, we had input from
Planning, fire, police?
planning, fire, police,
And
health and code,
Oh,
code
okay.
enforcement.
All right.
We made sure all our, these regulations dovetailed nicely with the Board of Health, because we've got it now that they can't get a Board of Health license without getting a
Yes.
food vendor permit, a mobile food vendor permit, and vice versa. We can't give a mobile permit without,
So you do them in tandem?
yes.
Okay.
Basically what we discussed, that they would apply basically simultaneously, but it wouldn't do us any good to move ahead if they can't get a Board of Health permit.
Right.
So, the Board of Health would tell us if they're eligible to get one, but they wouldn't give them one until,
You issue that.
then we would issue
Okay.
them simultaneously,
Gotcha.
basically.
Okay.
You can't have one without the other, and
Gotcha.
that goes both ways.
All right.
So those were the main sticking points, and all the different departments should have to sign off on them. The fire department looks at their, heating
Propane,
source, the
whatever, all that,
propane
yep.
source, make sure that meets code. That the parking is done properly. The police would make sure that they're where they're permitted to be, and park legally, not blocking intersections, not creating a traffic hazard, things like that.
Okay.
And we put some really beefed up language. As you know, the police just started fingerprinting, well,
The food, the ice cream.
ice
trucks?
cream trucks. So we basically use the same language for the ice cream truck statute
Right.
in our
Mhm.
regulation.
Okay.
So anybody,
So they kind of coexist.
whoever owns it or works in a food truck, even if you're not the owner of the
Present.
food truck, if you're an employee of the food truck and you've committed your special felony, we won't give you a permit.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion?
I'm good.
All right, all those in
Just,
fa-
well, if I may, I had some problems with the wording of the committee, and I'd like, not wanting to slow things down, but with, reading the 56-page handbook and the 30-something page other thing, I did not get to compare this to the old one, some of the changes that we'd asked for. I mean, it looks like the language that was given the committee, the power that I was concerned about, it looks like that's been changed from perhaps approving to recommending.
That's exactly what we did.
Okay, and so that would be basically recommending to the board, it's not specific, should it say to the Board of Selectmen, or that's just supposed to be commonly known? I guess is the
Are you under
question.
section 3?
If we
Yeah.
don't say
Yeah,
it
but we're,
specifically, I think it's in there.
Well, no,
very
it
end,
says
all
all
members
members shall be appointed
appointed
by the Board of Selectmen, but it's still, it sort of reads as they're recommending the rules and regulations as appropriate. So.
We're just, the committee is recommending, but you're granting the permit. You're the permitting authority. This Board of Selectmen is.
Yeah, but then what I'm saying is it looks like we still may not have any approval of the location and things of that sort then. That's gonna be perhaps,
Well, we have the maps.
on
Okay,
where
so
they can
that's-
go and where they
that's-
can't go.
You know,
Okay, that's not attached,
That was the
right?
GIS stuff that Mike
Yeah.
was talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
That's preordained by a map. Oh, we have a map where they can and can't go.
I just, if you don't
And
mind.
we're not recommending either that they be assigned a special spot. It's.
Right.
if-
It's where they
if it's-
can't go.
Yeah.
Is what's
They can go
designated.
anywhere that they're,
Not within 100 feet of a restaurant.
right.
I just like to hold off. I don't wanna slow down the process, I really don't. I don't think we got any permits that are outstanding there, but I'd just like to compare this with the old one and look it over a bit more. Like I say, the other ones were rather lengthy also.
Gary's right. I don't anticipate anybody applying for a permit in the next
All right,
2
so-
weeks.
All right, so we'll hold on.
Still have to take a vote.
Yep.
Still have to take a vote. You have a motion?
I don't think it was seconded.
Yeah, I thought it was, wasn't it?
I didn't.
I don't think there wasn't a motion.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had seconded, Gary, sorry.
No, Dave did make a motion, but I didn't second.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in and make a motion for it, but.
All right.
Okay, so we'll push that one off. Mike, when Gary and I were over at the MTA's meeting down in Salisbury, and town administrator over there, Mr. Harrington, had gotten his town hall painted for basically materials through the sheriff's department and the prisoners' work program.
Really?
Yes, so you
I'll
might
give
want
him a
to.
call tomorrow.
Might want to investigate that with
Contact
Mr.
Neil.
Harrington.
Absolutely.
He's like, really? And you know what's funny? Like, their town hall is like virtually the same colors
Is it?
inside as ours. It's really funny. I mean, it's like, why? Is everybody
They didn't-
around here have the same color scheme? But he said he got the outside and the inside and everything painted, and it was just basically for cost of materials and lunch.
We're just looking at exterior painting.
Yep.
No,
So,
that's-
yeah, give Neil Harrington a
I
call
will
over there in
definitely call
Salisbury. That was an interesting point, you know?
It
Thanks
was,
for bringing
I
that up
mean,
again, Gary.
yeah,
I forgot
if
about
You
that.
know, well, we brought up, they brought up the bidding
That'd be
process
great if we
and
could
and
save
how it got,
65 grand.
how they worked hard to get it from the 25 to the 35.
I don't know.
And so I mentioned
Yeah, it
that
was kind of old.
even though they did it, that the packet is so
Close
large,
enough.
we're not getting, we're not having that much luck because of the prevailing wage, and so that's when Neil said,
Yeah.
I got a secret for you that I
Yeah.
can tell you about that.
brought
So,
that
I mean,
one up, which
it
was
was-
great.
But just to say, it was a good meeting, I mean.
It was
really
informative.
It was well represented from area towns, and those breakfasts are always, hey, anytime you can pick up something like that, and hopefully it works out.
Hey, we got a little nugget out of that,
We
didn't
can
we?
think of the, yeah.
May,
think of
may
what we
save us a
got.
lot of money if it works
They've
out.
done work at Trestle Way.
Yeah.
It's worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've had them at the school doing graffiti and whatever. And
Well, I
raking and
guess they've
whatever.
got a division that just specializes in paint.
In paint, yeah, he said he's got a whole bunch of tradesmen over there that are,
So,
that's their thing.
Don't
It's
say
like,
it
wow,
too
really?
loudly, though. We gotta get our name
yeah,
in
keep
there
it,
first.
yeah. Exactly. So our next Board of Selectmen meeting's Monday the 20th at 6:30. We moved the meetings to 6:30. That's been going okay for you, gents? No issues?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the following meeting is October 27th at 6 p.m. At the middle high school, because that is special town meeting. So please mark that in your calendar. We need folks to attend so that we can attend to the warrant and getting things funded and passed, and that's your time to speak out and have a voice on how your tax dollars are spent and what they're spent on here in town on services and whatnot. So please remind you and your family members and your neighbors that we have town meeting on October 27th at 7 o'clock at the middle high school. You want to show up earlier than that so that you can get signed in through your precinct that you are in, and then it convenes at 7 and we do the town business. Any other discussion, anything else? Yes.
Okay.
Mike?
There is one other item
Miss
on the
something?
agenda under all business, alternate agenda posting method. At our last meeting,
I did miss that, sorry.
yeah, we were talking about all the local elected and appointed officials getting emails, and
Yep.
we had a discussion on the adopting, you actually adopted the alternate method, but I was asked to provide you with the policies and procedures of how they would go about actually posting it. I didn't get it in the packet, so you may want to, you know,
Let's
review this.
review it and then hit it next meeting.
But let me give it to you now.
Great.
I think I
So
picked
this
up.
is A to Z?
Yeah, it just spells everything out.
Were you able to find rough costs on maybe what a computer unit outside might run?
Yes.
I know that was part of the discussion too.
Yeah, what I looked at were kiosks, electronic kiosks. They would, and this one would have to be, you know, weather protected. Actually, I think they can be rented and or leased. They're not inexpensive, but a kiosk, a single standing outdoor kiosk, is about $9,000.
Yeah, see, that's what we're thinking about.
I was quoted about $240 a month
For a lease?
for a lease.
That would probably be well worth it, because by the time you get to that number, you're in replacement mode in 3 years anyway.
Yeah, and they, you know, it's guaranteed, under warranty for 3 years. They give you the Windows 7. It's basically a laptop with, you know, you can either have a keypad or it's a touch screen.
Yep.
The software resides on our server that people can access to build a database.
Yeah, and it would be Wi-Fi operated.
We have Wi-Fi. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
We're upgrading,
Not when you're
as
playing
part
with
of the new hardware plan, Boston System Solution is upgrading our Wi-Fi throughout the building. And that's already in the cost.
But this would be hardwired, it wouldn't be Wi-Fi.
It could be either.
Probably better off hardwired rather than Wi-Fi, so you don't get a break, you know, less likely to get a break hardwired. Or an interruption. I mean,
If I could say, to me, the type of person that's out there looking at the board is not the person that's gonna be wanting to use a computer, because not everybody can do it, you know? So I mean, I really, I mean, if you wanted to put both, but I mean, I think anybody that can go and manually operate this is gonna be doing it at home or at the library or someplace else. That's my feeling. That's for the people that wanna see the piece of paper in front of them. Those are the ones that are looking at it out there.
Well, it'd be an electronic
But
piece
Mike,
of
thank you.
paper.
You did what you were asked to do, so.
Yeah.
thank you.
And then I have one announcement to make. If you remember, several years ago, we applied for FEMA grants to take care of the water at the high school and the Pearly School. I received a letter, 2 letters this week, actually last week, that our application has been elevated from wait list to recommended to the FEMA for funding.
Oh.
That's interesting.
It was so long ago, I had forgotten the amount of monies, and I talked to our consulting engineer who put the application in for us, and this got turned down once.
It's like either 200 or 400, was it?
Well, there's 2 separate grants. One was for the middle school stormwater impact abatement. That was $158,000. And then the Georgetown Pearly School water, stormwater impact abatement was for $180,000. So it's a total of $338,000. So we just have to, as far as I know, our all hazards mitigation plan was submitted through Merrimack Valley Planning a while ago. And we were told that as long as we submitted the plan, then they could award the money. But the consulting engineer said we have to have an approved plan. So it's in the hands of FEMA, and I can't tell you when they're going to approve it.
Okay.
But we're
Making some progress.
getting closer.
3 years from now, we might hear back from them.
Just persistence on our
Something
part.
I wanna mention on that, yeah.
Okay.
So that's
good.
some good news. And did I pass out? You had asked me, Stu, for a status update on the DOR financial management review recommendations.
I don't think you passed it out, Pooh.
Okay. I shared
Like
this.
the priority?
Yeah, I shared
prioritizing
this
it?
with the finance committee last week. They were interested in it. Remember, there were 33 recommendations, and this gives you the status of all of them. A lot of them have been
Good.
ticked off.
Getting some scratched off.
That required just administrative action.
Yep. Good.
The finance committee actually would like to take care of number 3. They want to work on that this fall.
Okay.
To codify the budget process in a bylaw.
Really?
Yeah.
They really want to take that on.
They do.
God love them.
I
Have
think,
at it.
I think they're, probably the most,
The right
qualified
board
to
to
do
do
that.
it. No question. Absolutely.
And as you know, we really only have 2 long-term members still on the committee, so we gotta tap their brains.
Yeah, we gotta do that
before
now.
they,
Well, what about
one's
4?
leaving at the end of the year.
What about number 4, though?
That,
Why would we discontinue those?
'cause they're
Inappropriate.
not legal. That's why I used the word inappropriate instead of illegal.
Really?
Yeah. They don't meet the requirements for a revolving fund.
I think I still think, I looked through some old town reports. At one time, we used to fund, in the springtime, the road machinery fund. I think it was more like a capital fund when it was started,
Okay.
and now I think
Is that-
it gets used, from
Is
what
that for
I
highway?
understand. From what I understand, it gets used now if he does some work for water. That's about the only money that's going in there. But I think at one time, that was sort of like a capital fund where we put money in it, and then when they needed a piece of equipment, it was there for the spending if it was, I think it had to be taken out by town meeting also, but I don't think anything's been put in that in 20 years
Okay.
in that way.
Well, this is good. I'm glad to see the update. We can start knocking these off. So, can you take a look at this and, in your opinion, your point of view, give us a priority on these that are left that aren't scratched off yet? And who and what you would recommend? Maybe if there's a board that needs to review it or something like that.
Sure.
Just just like, here's an A that we can get done pretty quickly, and I recommend that this board or somebody take a look at it and work on it, or if it's a long term, maybe it's a C or a D. In terms of a priority scale. But this is great. We've got quite a few off of here, so that's good. So we have 33 punch points here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got a third of them gone. Good. That's pretty good. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Great. All right, any other, Gary, you had something?
Two things, I hope I don't forget the second one. I had asked Janet put on about a veterans update, but I guess with Phil not here, has anybody heard anything about the veterans agent? I mean, I've had a few people in town asking me, what the status is, and Do you know?
I just heard they were getting close to hiring somebody. But
Yeah,
that's
they,
all I've heard. I haven't
they
heard any
posted the
details.
job and collected interviews. I don't know, have they had the interviews yet?
I haven't heard. I was gonna
Yeah.
get to call them. I can,
Yeah, Phil would probably
Yeah,
have
Phil's the
more
guy.
Yeah,
information than we
maybe,
do.
maybe if we can, when he's here next, if we can make sure that we get an update on it. The other thing is just to, I gotta put on my community preservation hat, and that is for the Pond Street thing.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think there was some type of a sunshine clause built into that grant from the community preservation for that if it didn't, that it had to get spent within a certain amount of time. And we don't know about the state funding, so I mean, we may end up having to make a decision whether we're gonna want it go forward with it, with the community preservation funds. You know, at that breakfast, I'm not sure if this is the way it's gonna go, but Phil and I sort of got a little bit of an update on something that sounded like that. What did they call it? Earmarks that they put
Yeah,
in
there
the
were
budget?
earmarks that somebody
And
might
if that's
do
an
something
earmark-
like this as an earmark, but it might not get funded.
You might not get funding for 5-6
Because
years
that
down the
state
road.
department would say, no, it's not our priority, it's gonna be this, this, and this that are earmarked in the.
So I don't know
So
if-
Peter is having conversations with the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
He has his
So he's
contact
active on it.
person, and he's working
Okay.
to get those funds. As far as the expiration date, Gary, all those warrant articles, it's pretty much standard wording that it says if it's not spent within 3 years, the CPC may rescind it.
I think that one was shorter.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay, I'll check.
Check it out.
But it's may rescind. I mean,
That,
it
I
would-
agreed
it would-
there.
it would
So,
have
but
to.
I mean, we'd have to make a decision as a board if that's what it comes down to. And so that's why I'm saying if we can get as much information, so if you can keep working with Peter and keep us informed on where we are, so
Okay.
that, you know.
Yeah, we should make every effort to get it from the state before we spend our own money.
Yeah.
I agreed,
Mike,
but
did you-
I don't wanna see it expire and then
Right.
have to go
Mike,
through
did
the
you have-
process again.
You had mentioned something about doing an audit on CPC funds and stuff that maybe has expired that hadn't been fully funded or whatever. That was, am I?
Yeah, I was waiting for, well, that's what we were gonna use the project accounting software for.
Okay, put it in,
Once we
track
get
it.
the project accounting software,
Yeah.
then
You can put it in and track it all.
consultant will set it up in
Okay.
that software.
Okay.
And we'll have a
Great. Because there may be some projects that are like 5 years, never really fully
The
happened.
the
that-
town
that
hall
can
painting, I
kick
think is-
some dollars back in, exactly.
That's
like
one
town
that we
hall
can take
painting's one of
back, I
them,
think,
and-
right now,
Yeah,
if-
exactly. But that'll be great to have it kind of in real time,
Mhm.
being tracked and everything, so.
Yes, we can start on that as soon as we get the software.
And then that be next month or so, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I think.
And then you got training lined up for everybody soon?
That's in the cost, yes.
Yeah, okay. But would training happen this year, or would it be
Oh,
more after?
well, right, for the CPC, it would be just basically
Input.
Mary and myself.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I think you'd find, the CPC is aware of those projects.
Yeah, I would bet they do.
Yeah, I would
They
think so.
must keep an outstanding list
Yeah, I know.
of which where each
I don't
project
think
is.
it's something that we, you know, I don't think we've taken back any since I've been on there, but what we have talked about, some,
Keeping.
then discussed
Keeping
it.
an eye on
Oh,
it.
no,
Okay.
yeah, they're.
Good. All right, any further discussion on anything, gents? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:02.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, thank you, everybody.
We've gotta do something about the environment.
What's the heat up?